Must qualify for enrollment. Results may vary.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-575-4214. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 five-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-575-4214. That's 800-575-4214. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. I hope you're having just the best day possible. I am not. It's been a rough 24 hours for your boy. My Dallas Mavericks lose Game 5 of the NBA Finals. The Boston Celtics are officially your new NBA champions. Congrats to Boston and those guys. That is an incredible team. No other word for it. Okay, that team is as complete a team as you're going to see, especially in this modern day and age of the NBA where you pay for 2 stars and just kind of try and fill in the roster from there. That team is complete and tough, and congratulations to the Boston Celtics. And anytime a team wins a title, they are always remembered for something. There is always a certain quality that sticks out in teams that win championships. For example, some of those qualities are very basketball-based. The 2017 Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green Warriors. When I think of them, I think, geez, that team could really shoot the basketball. When I think of the 2016 Cavaliers, though, I don't think of a specific basketball quality. I remember them as a resilient team, right? They go down 3-1 in the finals, and then they come back to win. All right, if that's not resiliency, then I don't know what is, right? When I think of the bad boy Pistons, I think of toughness because that team was tough and they were kind of mean and they were physical. And my point is, every team that wins a title has a quality that defines who they are. For the Boston Celtics, I couldn't narrow it down to one. Because when I've watched that team play throughout the regular season and throughout the playoffs, there's really two things that really stick out and define who the Boston Celtics are. And those two qualities are adaptability and generosity. This is one of the most complete teams we've seen in the NBA. It's been a long time since we've seen a team this complete, right? Probably the most complete team we've seen since the Kevin Durant Warriors. That was 7 years ago, right? Because, that Warriors team, they could shoot, they could pass, they could defend. They had multiple guys who could put it on the floor. They had rim protection. Like, they just checked every single box. And when I look at the Boston Celtics, they check every single box. They had so many more options than every other team in the NBA on both ends of the floor, especially on defense, right? And this completeness and this, they had plenty of options. This plethora of options that they had allowed them to be adaptable. Okay, like they were athletic and they were deep. They had guys who were coming in off the bench that could really play defense. And having guys like Porzingis on the back line allowed them to change the way that they played defense depending on who was in the game and who wasn't. For example, when Porzingis was in the game, Boston on the perimeter would really press into whoever they were defending, because it's like, look, if they go by us, we got Porzingis waiting at the rim, who's a fantastic defensive anchor. They were adaptable. And when Porzingis went out of the game, the perimeter guys were like, okay, we're just not going to let anybody go by us. And if somebody found a way to go by them, someone found a way to win off the dribble like Luka and Kyrie did throughout this series, their athleticism and speed and length allowed them to rotate and still get someone on the ball to contest wherever the shot came from. Their adaptability on defense was a large part of why they won this series. It's a large part of why they beat the Pacers in 4. It's a large part of why they beat the Cavs in 5. It's a large part of why they beat the Miami Heat in 5. Okay, it's also, part of why they had the second best defensive rating in the NBA this year, and why they were able to hold a dynamic Dallas Mavericks offense with two dynamic scorers in Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving to under 100 points in 4 out of the 5 games. Now, what I'm going to say next, you're going to hear it and go, Jonathan, that might be blasphemy. But before you say that, let me get my full thought out. The 95-96 Bulls are regarded as, in my opinion at least, they're one of the best defensive teams we've ever seen. And they had the exact same advantage that the Boston Celtics currently do. When we look at those, Michael Jordan Bulls teams, especially those last 3 titles, they had Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Ron Harper. Those 3 guys could all 3 guard the point guard, shooting guard, or small forward spot. That made them so tough to score on, and it's a large part of why they went 72-10 that season. The Boston Celtics this year had the exact same advantage on the defensive end of the floor. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Drew Holiday, and Derek White could all switch the 1 through the 3 and even the 4 sometimes. And they're bigs. Like Al Horford did a great job in this NBA Finals and throughout the playoffs in general, defending on the perimeter. Kristaps Porzingis did a good job throughout the playoffs and in the finals, defending on the perimeter. Okay, when you have that much adaptability and switchability in your defense, it is so hard for other teams to score on you. And I truly think that in a few years, we're going to look back on this Boston Celtics team and see that this is one of the best defensive teams we have ever seen. And the reason why they're so great defensively is because they're adaptable. Whoever's guarding who, the Celtics are able to adjust and figure out a way to play good defense because of the athleticism and length and just the athletes that they have on defense. This is truly one of the best defensive teams we are ever going to see. And then offensively, they were great because of their generosity. That is the second quality that I think of when I think about this Boston Celtics team. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum could have easily averaged 30 points a game during this playoff run, but they didn't. They were willing to share the basketball. They were generous. Everyone on their team was. Like, when was the last time we had a finals MVP? Congrats to Jaylen Brown on that. When was the last time we had a finals MVP that only averaged 20 points a game? It's been a long time. Okay, they were willing to share the ball. Everyone on their team was. And they have a plethora of offensive options. Okay, everybody that they put on the floor at all times can dribble, pass, and shoot. And when you have that much skill, in addition to the athleticism that Boston has, you are a tough offense to slow down. Right? And their willingness to share the ball is what allowed them to have the best statistical offense ever. They averaged 123 points per 100 possessions. That is the best of all time. Okay, their ability to pass the ball and shoot the ball and their willingness to consistently move it allowed them to be hyper efficient on the offensive end. And you can only have an offense at that level of efficiency if you have the players that are willing to share the basketball. That's part of why the Pacers offense this year was so efficient. Halliburton, Nembhard, Siakam, Aaron Nesmith, Miles Turner, all of those guys were willing to share the basketball. When we look at the Oklahoma City Thunder, the third best offense in the league this year, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, Josh Giddey, Lou Dort. Like, you just worked your way through all the players that they have, and guess what they were all willing to do? They were all willing to share the basketball. And when you're willing to share the ball, it just makes offense so much easier. Like, I'm watching this series and I'm watching these games, and the Dallas Mavericks offense, it looked bad. It looked so difficult for them to do anything because the Mavericks didn't share the ball. Now, part of that, there are some personnel issues there. You don't exactly trust everybody on the Dallas Mavericks offense to put the ball down on the floor. And that led to their offense being stagnant. And because it was stagnant and because the ball didn't move and it didn't pop around the perimeter like it should have, they struggled throughout this series. Boston's willingness to share the ball was what made them great. Okay, because they are a great team. They went 81-20. They won 79% of their games. That's insane. Right? And that willingness to share the ball, the willingness to be generous with the basketball starts with the stars. Okay, like, that was the thing about the Spurs that made them so great. Tim Duncan bought into everything that Greg Popovich sold. And because of that, everyone else fell in line. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown bought into this Joe Mazzulla offense based off of drive and kick. And because they bought into it, everybody else did. And so there was a willingness to move the basketball, which led to them being the most efficient offense in the history of the NBA. Hats off to one of the most complete teams we will ever see. Hats off to Brad Stevens for putting together that monster. More on that here in a minute. So the Celtics win the finals officially last night. Finals MVP goes to Jaylen Brown. They were the best team all year, the Boston Celtics were. That doesn't happen very often. Okay, like, it doesn't. They had 5 guys on the floor at all times that could defend, dribble, pass, and shoot. The role players were awesome. Like, Derek White could be the third best player on a lot of teams. Drew Holiday was the second best player for the Milwaukee Bucks 3 years ago when they won the title. Al Horford is just a pro's pro. I am so happy for him. He is no longer on the list of most playoff games played without a title. Karl Malone still sits atop that list at 192 playoff games without a ring. The longest streak now for an active player is James Harden, which is pretty fitting. Brad Stevens just did an awesome job putting this team together, making the trade for Kristaps Porzingis, making the trade for Derek White. The best player they gave up in that deal was Romeo Langford. Okay, making the trade for Drew Holiday, parting ways with Marcus Smart, like a legitimate emotional leader in that locker room. Brad Stevens says, you know what? We don't need Marcus Smart. Let's get Drew Holiday in here. And that, to me, is ultimately the move that put them over the top. Drew Holiday was awesome in the finals. He was great in the Eastern Conference Finals. He made so many big plays down the stretch. Okay, like that's what Drew Holiday did. And he did the same thing in these finals as well. He did. And just to add on to what Brad Stevens did, when all the Ime Udoka stuff happened and they fired him, they're looking around and they're like, who do we hire as a head coach? Because it wasn't, this happened last year and it was right before the season started. And he was like, geez, who do we hire as head coach? I guess we're going to take this 34-year-old guy named Joe Mazzulla, who sat on the second row of the bench the year prior, and they made him the head coach. Great call by Brad Stevens. He did an incredible job, and this team undoubtedly deserved to win a title with the way that it was beautifully constructed. They had the best offense in the regular season and the second best defense. If that doesn't tell you how great this team was, then nothing will. They had three different guys that I thought were deserving of winning of winning Finals MVP between, Tatum, Brown, and Drew Holiday. I'd have given it to Holiday, but hey, that's just kind of the way it goes. And now that the Boston Celtics have officially won a title, this is one of the best teams ever. They went 80-21. They went 16-3 in the playoffs. That is absurd. That is an insane run. They are the fourth team ever in the history of the NBA to win 80 games. Okay, they won 79% of the games that they played this year between the playoffs and the regular season. It's insane. Once again, only 3 playoff losses the entire way. And I know that they faced injuries, like Halliburton gets hurt in the Eastern Conference Finals. Donovan Mitchell and Jared Allen didn't play in the second round. Jimmy Butler and Terry Rozier didn't play in the first round. But we're going to look back at this time next year, and we're not going to remember any of that. We aren't. And honestly, I don't know if it would have mattered. This was truly a dominant team, and they played like that in the finals against a good Mavericks team, by the way. Okay, this title was a good reminder that teams that are constructed properly win titles. Okay? The Boston Celtics were not about any one specific player. Obviously, some players were better than others, but that is what made them so great. Like for Dallas, they were overly reliant on Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. When the Boston was able to really slow Kyrie Irving down, not only in Game 5, but in really the series as a whole, it was a lot of Luka. And when you're playing a team constructed as well as Boston, and you're just relying on one or two guys, then you are in trouble. Okay, once again, they had 3 different dudes that I thought were worthy of winning Finals MVP between Drew Holiday, Jason Tatum, or Jaylen Brown. All of them very well deserving. I would have given it to Drew Holiday because I just thought he consistently, time and time again, made big plays down the stretch. And that just speaks to the roster construction and the job that Brad Stevens has done as the general manager of the Boston Celtics. He stepped into that role and just done amazing things. And it's proof that aggressiveness wins in sports. Okay, when we look at 3 of the most impactful players for Boston, they didn't get them in the draft. They didn't get them in free agency. Brad Stevens called up the Milwaukee Bucks and said, hey, I want Drew Holiday. How do we make that happen? And he makes the trade. He called up the Washington Wizards and he said, hey, we want Kristaps Porzingis. I know you guys are trying to get rid of him. What do you want for him? And they got Kristaps Porzingis. They called the San Antonio Spurs and they're like, hey, we want Derek White. What do you guys want? Oh, you guys want Romeo Langford and a first-round pick? We'll do that. And aggressiveness wins in every single sport. The team that goes out and makes things happen tends to win. Those teams tend to win more games. And we're looking around Indy, and part of why the Pacers are in such a good spot is because they went out and they made things happen. They made a trade for Tyrese Halliburton. They made a trade for Pascal Siakam. These good players came available, and they're like, hey, we could use some more good players. And they went out and they made the trades. And that's something that the Colts don't do that I wish that Chris Ballard would learn. The best teams in sports are aggressive and they make things happen. Now, sometimes you take a big swing and it doesn't turn out the way that you want. And, just look at the Milwaukee Bucks. They trade away Drew Holiday. They bring in Damian Lillard. Injuries happen, but the team wasn't super great anyway. But that's the way it goes sometimes. So hats off to Brad Stevens in the Boston Celtics. He constructed an absolute monster, and it's only going to get scarier. I'm going to tell you why when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
We're going abroad for the first time in years, to Spain. So we started using Babbel.
And started learning Spanish fast.
With Babbel, you can start having conversations in another language in just 3 weeks.
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Cómo te llamas?
When you learn a language, you want to actually use it. Babbel is designed with that goal in mind.
In just 3 weeks, we're starting to have conversations in Spanish. Gracias, Babbel.
Babbel, language for life. Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. That's Babbel.com.
More winners, more often. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hope I caught you having an absolutely fantastic day. Boston Celtics, they are your new NBA champions, and rightfully so. That team is as complete as you're going to find in modern basketball. I mean, just absolutely loaded, top to bottom. They have depth, all those things. I mean, just a great team. And the scary thing is, they can do this again next year. They are bringing everybody back. Here are the players who have expiring contracts for the Boston Celtics this year. J.D. Davidson, guy on a two-way contract. Luke Cornett, who didn't see the floor in the finals unless there was a blowout. A guy whose name I can't pronounce. Drew Peterson, who's on a two-way contract. Xavier Tillman, who got some minutes here and there for the Celtics throughout the finals, especially when Kristaps Porzingis was banged up. Sam Hauser came in off the bench and knocked down some big threes. His contract is expiring, but he should be resignable. Neemias Queta, his contract is expiring, and O'Shea Brissett is also having his contract expire this offseason. So that means that all of their major contributors, minus Sam Hauser, are going to be back. But here's the thing. The salary cap goes up this year. Once again, especially with the new TV deal. Like, we're going to see a legitimate, like, big-time increase because of that. And so, like, they're going to be able to afford to bring Xavier Tillman and Sam Hauser back if they so choose. And the scary thing is, Chris Ballard is not the general manager of the Boston Celtics. Jonathan, what do you mean? I mean that Brad Stevens is actually going to use free agency to make their team better. Now, I don't know what the Boston Celtics can do to make their team better, but Brad Stevens is a smart guy. I'm sure that he sees small things here and there that he can do to improve the team. And here's the other thing. Boston is plus 300 to win the title next year. They are heavy favorites. The team with the second best odds to win the title next year are the Denver Nuggets at plus 750. That is a major gap between the two teams. Like, this Boston Celtics team, they're running it back, and it wouldn't surprise me if they repeated as champs. Now, I have to do legacy watch. I do this after every NBA Finals because, you know, like when we talk about great NBA players, titles obviously play a large role in who we discuss. So, you know, did some research. Here is a list of players that did not have a title at the age of 26, which is how old Jason Tatum did. Michael Jordan didn't have one. LeBron James hadn't won one yet. Shaquille O'Neal hadn't won one yet. Steph Curry hadn't won one yet. Kevin Durant hadn't won one yet. And then there are many, many others. Meanwhile, Jason Tatum, more titles at the age of 26 than all those guys combined with one. And here's the thing, with Boston being able to largely run it back, he's going to have a chance to win his second title at only the age of 27. He's the best player for this Boston Celtics team. I think it's been apparent throughout the regular season and throughout the playoffs. It's like, well, Jonathan, Jaylen Brown won Eastern Conference Finals MVP and Finals MVP. And I know he did, fully aware of that. But the way Boston is defended, Tatum is clearly the best player. You're going to see think pieces and segments on ESPN asking if Jaylen Brown's better. He's not. Okay, every team puts their best defender on Jason Tatum, and that tells you all you need to know when figuring out who the better player is. Okay, and Tatum's going to have a chance next year to prove it and to win a Finals MVP, but him not winning Finals MVP is not the end of the world. Shaquille O'Neal, Steph Curry, Kobe Bryant, keep working your way down the list. There are plenty of stars that didn't win Finals MVP every time they won the title. So, not a big deal. When we look at Dallas, because, you know, there's two sides to this story. Seen a lot of tweets about how Dallas is going to be back, and then they throw out the ages of everybody. Luka's 25. Daniel Gafford's 25. Josh Green's 23. Jaden Hardy's 21. Derek Lively's a rookie. He's only 20. PJ Washington's 24. Like, it's just a list of all these guys and their ages. And people are like, they're young. They'll be back. It's hard to get back. I think everybody knows that. And they're young. Okay, like I do want to give kind of a glass half full thing here to start before I get really negative about this Dallas team. They're young, and it's not abnormal for inexperienced teams like Dallas to struggle in their first finals, even when they're really good. Like the Celtics struggled 2 years ago when they played the Warriors in the finals. Like when you play a team that has been there before and it's your first time, you tend to lose. It doesn't happen often that the team making their first finals appearance beats the team that has been there before. I've talked a decent amount about this during the playoffs and just the importance of experience, and Boston was hands down the better team. And it didn't help Dallas at all that Boston was also the more experienced team. If they meet again in the finals, that won't be the case anymore. But that is a large if, because I am concerned about Kyrie Irving. He's small, he's getting older, and he doesn't bring much to the table outside of scoring. Like if he's not making his shots, he's not going to rebound, and he's not going to defend. He's going to make no other impact. And look, Dallas is going to run it back this next year. And the results tell you that you should. They won the Western Conference Finals. Well, let's be honest. They aren't anywhere close to Boston. They aren't good enough on the ball defensively to win a title. They don't have enough ball handlers to win a title. And part of that is Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving aren't great defenders. Luka's running mate needs to be somebody very different from Kyrie Irving. Luka's running mate, the second best player alongside Luka Doncic, needs to be a big wing that can defend and score. Kyrie Irving isn't that. Okay, it is hard to win championships in basketball, in the NBA, when your two best players are question marks on the defensive end. Now, Luka has improved defensively, believe it or not. Kyrie, though, there's not much else he can do. Like, he just doesn't have the size to be a good defender. Like, basketball is not made for small guys. It's not. In a league that is getting bigger and bigger every year, 6'2" isn't exactly the height that you want to be standing at. Okay, and the Mavericks are going to take a step back. They're going to look at these results and say something like, this team was thrown together at the trade deadline. You know, they're going to have a full year to gel this next year, you know, like once the team chemistry gets better, you know, we should be better next year just because of that. And that logic's fine, but the team is flawed. Like this Dallas Mavericks team has a lot of issues that Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving were able to cover up against the Oklahoma City Thunder and against the Minnesota Timberwolves and against the Los Angeles Clippers. But then they ran into a team that was legitimately good enough to win a title, and those weaknesses were exposed, right? And when we look at the Mavericks, you know, Luka is going to come back better next year. He just is, because he's only 25 years old, and guys tend to get better till they're about 27, 28. Derek Lively, rookie, he's going to come back a better player next year, right? And he's going to have a larger impact than what he already did. He was great throughout the playoffs. You know, like that's what happens when you lose in the finals, right? They usually ignite something in players to get in shape and be better and get better in the offseason. I think Luka's going to come back next year with a slightly different body. I know people don't like the weight. I don't mind the weight. I think it helps him offensively. You know, I get that defensively it doesn't hurt him, but look, him losing 20 pounds isn't going to turn him into a fantastic defender. That's just not going to happen. But even if Luka Doncic comes back 20 pounds lighter and he is a better defender, and even if Derek Lively comes back a better player, it's not going to be enough. It's not. Because Dallas right now isn't better than Denver. If they'd played them in the Western Conference Finals, Denver more than likely would have won. And they're clearly not good enough to beat Boston right now. Right? And here's the truth of it. They might not even get to that point next year. You know, I was on Twitter this morning and, you know, scrolling back through some tweets from last night after it happened. And somebody tweeted out that the NBA was in big trouble because LeBron James is going to retire and Steph Curry is going to retire. And all these stars that people love are going to retire. And they're like, the league's cooked because these finals were boring. Okay? Which is, you know, fine. Whatever, they were. But here's the thing. Teams are going to come back better. Like when we look at the Eastern Conference, the Pacers should be better next year. The Knicks should be better next year. The Milwaukee Bucks, if they just aren't injured, they'll be better next year. The Miami Heat are going to add a piece. The 76ers are going to revamp their entire roster. They should be better next year. On and on and on. Like everybody comes back better. And then in the West, I mean, the West is just loaded. The Thunder should be better. Denver's going to look to add a piece. Golden State's going to look to add a piece. The Lakers are going to look to add a piece. Like, everybody comes back better every single year. And if the Mavericks decide to just run it back, they're not getting back to the finals. They're going to have to make some pretty decently sized personnel changes because they have issues. They need a wing scorer / defender, someone like Paul George, who they can't afford. They don't have the cap space for it. Now maybe they can draft Bronny James and get LeBron to go down to Dallas. But that's not going to fix all their problems either. Love LeBron. He was, named All-NBA once again this year. But he's not a good enough defender. He's not what the Mavericks need. He's not. And Kyrie Irving's getting older. Small guards age quickly. And once again, like, this is a league littered with dudes standing at 6'7", 6'8", and 6'9". They just are. And when you're 6'2" and you're, 3, 4, 5 inches shorter than everyone else, then it's harder to score. It just is. It's harder to play defense. You get picked on more when you're that little. Like, this isn't, the 90s and the early 2000s where there are guards running around that are, 6 feet tall. Like, that's not a thing anymore. Like you look around the league, there's a lot of dudes like Cade Cunningham in Detroit who's 6'6" playing point guard. Guys like Luka Doncic who's 6'7" playing point guard. Like, you keep working your way through it. Like, even Boston, like Drew Holiday's like 6'4", 6'5". So is Derek White. Like, the league is getting bigger and bigger every year. And as Kyrie continues to age and the lift in his legs starts to go a little bit and he's not as quick and he doesn't hang in the air as long, he's going to decline pretty quickly. And we'll see how that looks. Coming up here in about 4 minutes, it's Tuesday. What do we do on Tuesdays? We do Top 10 Tuesday. Can't wait. Cannot wait to do this edition of it. Coming up at 11, my guy, Matt Murphy, the guy who looks like a Paul brother, he's going to join me. Big golf guy, so we're going to talk U.S. Open, former basketball coach as well, so we'll probably talk a little bit of NBA Finals on top of everything else, look at the future for the Pacers, all those fun things. That is coming up here in about 4 minutes.
Often imitated, never duplicated. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Tickets, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Tickets. What is going on? I hope you're having a fantastic Tuesday. I'm having a good Tuesday. Not a great one. Played some pickleball this morning. Got my butt handed to me a couple games. Wasn't great. My Mavs lost last night. That's okay, though. It happens. We're entering into the grind of the summer. I think, my wife, love her to death. I just know that she's so happy that basketball's over. I know that she is. No more nights with me just hanging out on the couch, watching hoops while she crochets or something. So, having just a great time. But it is Tuesday, which means we have to do Top 10 Tuesday. And as we enter into the summer months, if you thought that you were hearing a lot about Caitlin Clark, well, get ready, because the WNBA is really the only thing going on right now, which is plenty for us here at the Real Jonathan Smith Show, because there's so many storylines coming out of that. And because the WNBA is going on, we are seeing this emergence of a new rivalry between Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. The best times during any league is when you have rivalries like this, whether it's team versus team. Who doesn't love watching Yankees, Red Sox in the ALCS? It's truly the best. Who didn't really enjoy watching the Pacers and the Knicks play in the Eastern Conference Finals? Who didn't enjoy watching Spike Lee and Reggie Miller, go at each other back in the day? Rivalries make sports great. Villains and heroes make sports more fun. They make them more entertaining. And that is what we are seeing in the WNBA. Part of why people are so engaged is because there's a lot of people who like Caitlin Clark and view her kind of as the hero, as this woman who's going to come in and do a lot of great things for the WNBA. And then we look across the aisle and we're like, there's Angel Reese, the villain in this story, right? Someone that a lot of people don't like because Angel Reese beat Caitlin Clark in a national championship game. Someone that a lot of people don't like because she's not afraid to open her mouth and talk crap about Caitlin Clark. Rivalries make sports awesome. And so this is in no particular order. These are my top 10 Tuesday old rivalries. And then I've got a few new ones that are slowly emerging. So let's start at the top here. Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal. This was a rivalry. It's a weird one because they played on the same team, but I think it's very well documented that they did not like each other in the slightest. That's why Shaquille O'Neal left for Miami. He's going to sit there and he's going to deny it. He's going to say that he didn't leave the Lakers because of Kobe Bryant. He's going to say that they didn't want to pay him the money, all that fun stuff. We all know, though, that he left because he didn't like Kobe Bryant, and the feuds are well documented. Okay, Shaq has talked about it. Part of why he was so motivated when he went to play for the Miami Heat was because he wanted to win a title without Kobe Bryant. He wanted to have one more ring than Kobe, which makes sense because they didn't like each other. And then when Kobe, wins two more rings with Pau Gasol and he's Finals MVP and all those things, some of the first words out of his mouth were, quote, "I got one more than Shaq." They didn't like each other. Everybody kind of laughed when Kobe Bryant said it, but you could tell that he was serious. They did not like each other. And since this Top 10 Tuesday is, in large part because of the Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark rivalry, very reminiscent of Magic and Bird, I had to put Magic and Bird on the list. This one has to be on the list. When we think of old rivalries, how do you not include Magic Johnson and Larry Bird? Okay, it's the rivalry that brought the NBA back, and it dates back to college. They seem like they're buddies now, but Larry Legend did not like Magic Johnson. They battled it out for a long time in the league. They had, a sweet ending playing together on the 92 Olympic Dream Team, but they had plenty of battles during their careers. They played against each other in the NBA Finals 3 times. And, Dan has mentioned this on his show. Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark feels pretty similar. The rivalry dates back to college, and it's carried over into the NBA. And it's awesome. Magic and Bird, they're a large part of why the NBA is what it is today. Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell also belong on this list. This is one of the oldest rivalries in the history of sports. Okay, they faced off in the playoffs several times, and there's a story of Bill Russell being mad at Wilt Chamberlain for, I can't remember if he got hurt or if he got into foul trouble. I think he got into foul trouble the last time that they played each other in the finals. Bill Russell was upset because he wanted to finish his career playing against Wilt Chamberlain, and that obviously didn't happen. And I love this rivalry as well because I think it symbolizes a lot of sports debates, right? This idea of championships versus personal accolades. So when we look at Chamberlain, like he's the definition of this guy who did all these insane things. Meanwhile, Bill Russell just went ahead and won 11 titles. So I think it symbolizes a little bit more than just their rivalry. Ali versus Frazier, also 1,000% has to be on this list. They only fought 3 times after Frazier took the championship belt while Ali was dodging the draft. But they fought pretty quickly after all that happened. Frazier wins. Ali's running his mouth. He wins the next 2. They aren't friends because I guess Muhammad Ali said some pretty personal things. From there, Frazier went on and was like, we aren't friends. You said you crossed the line. Ali and Frazier, 1,000% has to be on this list. Jordan versus the Bad Boys. This is another fantastic rivalry, right? Anytime there's a story of trying to get over the hump, like there's always going to be a rivalry there. Isaiah Thomas and the Bad Boy Pistons didn't like Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, very well documented. He didn't like Isaiah and the Bad Boy Pistons at all, right? The Jordan rules, and there's just a long, lengthy history there. Charles Barkley went on Dan's show, I guess that was a couple months ago now, and, said that our guy, Michael Jordan simply said that he didn't want Isaiah on the dream team, and it didn't happen because of it. And, the Pistons stood in Jordan's way for a few years, and that turned into a great rivalry between Michael Jordan and the Bad Boy Pistons. Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. This also has to be on the list. They played against each other so many times, throughout their careers. They faced each other 17 times. Even though Brady holds the better all-time record between the two, Peyton Manning had the better record between the two in the playoffs, including winning 3 of 4 AFC championship matchups. I mean, they are friends. They worked out together in the offseason and all those things. And, yeah, I mean, that's just when I think about the history of the NFL, like that rivalry has to be brought up. Tom Brady and Eli Manning. Eli Manning beats Tom Brady twice in Super Bowls. I know that drives Tom Brady absolutely nuts because of all the opponents that Tom Brady had in the Super Bowl. Like, outside of maybe Jared Goff, Eli Manning's probably the worst quarterback that he faced off against. And for some reason, he couldn't beat those Giants teams, and it was great. Another one here. I love this one. Like, as I was researching, trying to figure out everything that was going on, or not everything that was going on, but just some different ones that are a little bit more out there. Roger Clemens and Mike Piazza. This has to be on here. I didn't know this until I started doing my research last night, but the Subway Series is going on. Roger Clemens nails Piazza in the head. Now, Clemens says it wasn't on purpose. Piazza felt like it was. He ends up missing he doesn't start the All-Star game. Piazza doesn't because he suffers a concussion. It's not great. A few months later, the World Series happens. And the World Series is going on. Clemens saws Piazza off. Okay, foul ball breaks Piazza's bat. Clemens then infamously picked up one of the shards of the bat and threw it at Mike Piazza. The benches obviously cleared, which never happens in the World Series. Like in the playoffs, those guys are pretty reserved. No one wants to get thrown out. No one wants to get suspended. Didn't matter here. Benches clear. Piazza then writes a memoir about the history of his life. And in it, he reveals that he learned karate leading into that game because he thought that he would for sure be fighting Roger Clemens that night, which is absurd. That's got to be one of the best stories in baseball history. Could you imagine learning karate because you're preparing to fight somebody in a baseball game? It's awesome. It's fantastic. Tanya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan, I thought also needed to be on this list. If you don't know who that is, those are two figure skaters. This is one of the wildest stories in, the history of sports, especially and undoubtedly in the history of the Olympics. I mean, this is one of the most intense feuds in Olympic history. After practice in Detroit, Michigan in 1994, Nancy Kerrigan, who was, likely going to win gold, was brutally beaten with a metal baton. Just like the snot beaten out of her. She can't compete. It's not great. Come to find out, the husband of Tanya Harding was the one who beat the crap out of her. Her biggest rival, which is just absolutely nuts. That undoubtedly belongs on the list. There's obviously some things that I left off of here because it's top 10 Tuesday. Like there's only 10 slots. I decided to put Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant on here. If you wanted to remove this one and put on like Tiger and Phil, something like that, totally acceptable. But when all that went down, when Kevin Durant decides to leave Oklahoma City to go to Golden State, like that is one of the biggest, crossings of a teammate I think that we've ever seen. I really think so. Like Durant leaves, I think it's safe to say that Russell Westbrook felt betrayed. Like they'd been to the finals together. They were supposed to stick together and win a title together. And then Durant leaves for, of all places, Golden State, the team that had just beat them in the playoffs the previous year. Right? And then, when Durant goes back to Oklahoma City, it's one of my favorite games ever. It's so intense. They're getting in each other's faces. Russell Westbrook's running his mouth and, they were shoving matches and it was just intense. It's one of my personal favorite rivalries ever. Ever. Insane. And those are my 10 of the best old rivalries ever. Once again, if you wanted to trade out that Westbrook and Durant one for, Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods, not a big deal. Not going to push back on that. Just more of a hoops guy here and instead of a golf guy. Now, I wanted to move into emerging rivalries. Like, I think that, in a decade, we're going to look back and be like, geez, like these rivalries were absolute cinema when these two teams or players faced off against one another. Mahomes and Allen has to be on this list. Joey Chestnut and Kobayashi could also go probably on the older rivalries list. But Mahomes and Allen, this is the new Brady and Manning. They are clearly the two best quarterbacks in the NFL. Don't give me it's, Lamar Jackson. Don't give me it's, Justin Herbert or whoever you want to throw in that second best quarterback spot. Like it is clearly Mahomes and Allen. And like they're the new Brady and Manning. We're going to continue to see them play against each other throughout, as the years go on. They're going to meet in the AFC playoffs consistently, and it's going to be fun to watch. And, it's not really a rivalry unless both people win. So hopefully Allen can figure out a way to win some of these games. Clark and Reese, like they obviously have to be on the list. Like the whole reason why I'm doing this is because of them. I think people are going to continue to tune in and watch them play. Like Angel Reese beat Caitlin Clark in the Natty 2 years ago. She hasn't beaten her since, but she continues to talk crap and run her mouth. And it has this Magic and Bird feel to it. And look, when Magic and Bird came out of college, Magic Johnson, nice guy, friends with everybody, $1 million smile, all those things. I don't think he had a problem with Bird, but Larry Bird didn't like Magic Johnson. That is documented. Okay, like they did there's a whole documentary on it where Larry Bird says that he didn't like Magic Johnson because he beat him in the national championship game. Like, sure, he probably had respect for him as a basketball player and all those things, but he didn't like Magic when he first came out of Indiana State. Two more here before I take a break and I welcome on my guy, Matt Murphy. Brooks Koepka and Bryson DeChambeau could be a rivalry at some point. This might be a bit of a stretch. Koepka made the comment last year or 2 years ago about how long it takes DeChambeau to hit the ball. That kind of led to some media stuff. Not a super big deal, but these are two of the better young golfers in the sport. Them two and Scotty, like they're gonna probably run into each other again at some point, and I can't wait for that. My last one here before I go to break and bring on my guy Matt Murphy to talk, all things hoops and a little bit of golf as well. Oh man, this one is my last one. My final emerging rivalry is transgender athletes versus real women. I don't think that I need to explain this one. With that being said, my guy Matt Murphy is set to join me here in about 5 minutes. We're going to talk U.S. Open. McIlroy, he released a statement yesterday. We're going to get into that. And then we're probably going to talk a little bit of NBA Finals as well. Hope you enjoyed this edition of Top 10 Tuesday. I'll be back here in about 5 minutes with my guy, Matt Murphy.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Tickets. Hour number 2. Had a great hour number 1 talking about just how freaking good that Boston Celtics team is, man. Like, I'm not even upset that they gave my Mavs a gentleman's sweep, but we aren't going to talk about that anymore. I've got my guy Matt Murphy joining. Actually, we'll probably touch on it a little bit because when Matt joins the program, there's no telling where it's going to go at all. Just wrapped up Top 10 Tuesday. So going from Top 10 Tuesday to my guy Matt, I mean, that's just, it doesn't get much better than that. You know?
Good day, no doubt.
It's a great day. So let's start with U.S. Open. I had you on last week to kind of preview and talk about that. DeChambeau, the mad scientist, who I love, by the way. I know that he's not everybody's favorite golfer, but I really like him. I'm glad he won. What did you make of just the tournament and Pinehurst and all that good stuff?
Yeah, it was unique to say the least. Happy for Bryson, though. I'm not in the boat that is anti-Bryson. There's a lot of people that think he's kind of a cornball, and he's seen some ups and downs, obviously, but it does seem to be a relatively good dude, and just interacted with fans well. I thought that was really cool, and so yeah, it's part of it feels a little bit showy at times on the course, like a little bit phony, a little bit. But in general, happy for him. He obviously played really well, and as a Pinehurst, it was playing so tough, dude. It was playing so tough. The fact that even par would get you in a major, get you top 10 is crazy.
Only 8 guys shot under par. That's nuts. Ridiculous. I like it though. Like I think that's how it should be, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it definitely is a different type of tournament. I think a lot of people have come to expect the winner of a tournament to be up in the 16 under, 20 under, right? And it is a good kind of change of pace to have a more defensive course. Like people have to just play defensive, and there's plenty of holes out there where you take a par. Like honestly, like these are professionals that would be thrilled to par a couple of these holes. I thought in general, the Rory situation, obviously I know that's been in the news all over. Unfortunate to say the least. I was really rooting for him. Obviously that was my pick to win. And you're gonna love this, John. In my US Open pool, my brother puts one on every year. So I picked Rory and Ludwig, and my team had a 10-shot lead going into the last day. So my team is the whole 10-shot lead. And within 3 holes of the first round, of the 3 holes of the last round, my 10-shot lead had dwindled down to a 2-shot lead. Just all of a sudden. And then I was up by 2 shots when Rory had 4 holes to go. And he bogeyed 3 of the last 4 holes, and I ended up losing to my sister, who ended up winning the U.S. Open pool. So
that's brutal.
The Rory thing hurt in more ways than one. But in general, just is hard to see him. It's going to be hard to overcome the narrative that's been he can't win big tournaments, because he is an all-time choke job, in my opinion. I mean,
it's been a decade.
Yeah, it's been a decade, and you had two putts within 5 feet that you missed in the last 3 holes, and 3 bogeys in the last 4 holes.
He hadn't missed a putt inside 4 feet all year. Until Sunday. Joined by my guy Matt Murphy, the golf correspondent here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show, also a former basketball coach as well. So this guy, he does everything. I don't blame Rory for storming off after the loss. Like that's just a really tough thing. Obviously there are trolls out there who are going to give him crap for that. I don't blame him at all. I'd have probably done the exact same thing. Might have even broken some stuff on my way out. So I don't blame him at all. How did you take that? Because golf's a very gentleman's sport. Like you're supposed to shake the other guy's hand, all those different types of things, and he obviously he didn't do that.
No, he did not. I don't blame him at all. I think, and he came out even on social media and said this was the hardest day in his 17 years of playing professionally, and to lose like that is brutal. So I don't blame him getting out of there. I mean, he obviously didn't come out and he didn't break anything. He wasn't bad mouthing anybody, right? And I think sometimes the best thing to do is just kind of get away. Before you do something you would regret or say something you'd regret. So I fully understand. Don't blame him at all for doing any, for kind of driving off. I did see the video of him in the parking lot, just kind of spinning wheels, getting out of there. But yeah, it's just a hard day, hard sport for him. So just and again, it just, you said it, that adds to the weight that it's been 10 years. So it's not just you're losing a major in that fashion, bogeying 3 of the last 4 holes. It's you're losing a major that you haven't won in 10 years. And there's this narrative going on that you can't win in these big tournaments, and that's going to just continue.
It is. Like if Scheffler does that, I think he's fine. I think, he does the post round press conference and he's clearly upset, but he's won a couple majors this year. So he's fine, but I think you're exactly right. Like you don't win one you haven't won one in a whole decade. And it's like, you're right there. And then you bogey 3 out of the last 4 holes, miss 2 putts inside 5 feet.
Yep.
And you're going home. And look, I don't feel too bad for the guy. Like you come in second place, you're getting a large chunk of change. So I don't feel, yeah.
You're not, he'll obviously be fine, but I really liked that Bryson had to make a shot like he did to win. I'm really glad that he missed the fairway. I'm glad he had to hit a crazy shot, second shot, right? He's got the root in front of him. He's kind of bending over a tree. Like that kind of felt like he humanized him a little bit, because I think all of us that play golf can sympathize with that. Just having bending over a tree and having to do a little half backswing. But then too, it's one of the best shots I think you'll see in a major ever. The bunker shot from 50 yards. I mean, that is the hardest shot in golf without a doubt. And I saw a stat that people who are in that bunker the rest of the tournament, the average distance from, I don't think anybody had gotten up and down from there all tournament, and if so, maybe it was 1 or 2. And then the people in general, like people that have been in that bunker, the average putt from that bunker was about 35, 40 feet, and he put it to like 4, which is just ridiculous. And in that moment, with that, the pressure in that moment was obviously immense. So yeah, it was cool that he had to make a shot like that to win. So that's where you tip your cap to him. And again, I think that's one of the best shots you'll see in a major.
The video of it afterwards is absolutely nuts. Joined by my guy Matt Murphy, the golf correspondent here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show, also a former hoops coach as well. Like you see the shot, and it's just like I was like, that's insane. Like I couldn't do that at Psalms. Yet alone at Pinehurst with all these people watching with a major on the line, and like you said, he puts it to 4 feet. Did you see the video afterwards? This guy from the Golf Channel took the same shot and he put it to like 2 feet. It's pretty nuts.
So I will say that is getting into some peak content there. Just with having a guy like that, and obviously he can play. The guy who, the reporter who did that. But I will say the first time he did it, he hit it well over the green, though he wasn't. And so the clip that's gone viral.
I didn't see that one.
He went on and tried it before Bryson came up and was coaching him through it. So we'll throw that caveat on there. He was about 1 for 2, but still, that was really cool. That was really cool. Really cool.
It was nuts. I want to transition to the Celtics winning the finals. I think we're going to look back in a few years, and I think we're going to realize that this is one of the best defensive teams I think we're ever going to see, just with how they're able to switch, and they have rim protection, and they're big, and they're long, and they're athletic at every single spot. And then you move to the offensive side of the ball, and it's like they can all dribble, pass, and shoot. Like the team was incredibly complete. And I think people are kind of writing them in as like as repeat champs because they're bringing everybody back, like literally every single person. And over here, I'm like, teams get better. That's just kind of the way that it works. You know, because like when you are the top dog, you have teams do what you know the Timberwolves did to the Nuggets this year. They built their entire team around the idea of beating the Nuggets, and you're gonna have teams do that for Boston now. I don't think that they're a shoe-in just to repeat. Who are some of the teams that you think next year could really kind of push them to where they don't repeat?
Yeah, across the board, just looking at what Boston did first off, it was special, and I think their dominance. You can a lot of people that point to reasons why. People say that it's a Mickey Mouse ring, it's a fluke, whatever. What they did all season was incredible. They didn't lose 20 games in everything they played, like throughout the playoffs and the regular season. I mean, they're ridiculous. And credit to Joe Mazzulla. I really enjoy. He's got some interesting sound bites post game, but seems to be a really good dude, and cool to see him succeed. But certainly the most props I think that doesn't get given enough is Brad Stevens for putting that team together. I mean, that they really don't have many weaknesses when you're across the board, because they defend all five positions. Defend. There's no one position that really can't defend, and they're versatile defenders, right? Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, they can all guard the 1 through 4 no matter what. And obviously having Porzingis back there and even Horford, 2 good rim protectors. So Brad Stevens did a really good job of putting this team together. And I just continually have been impressed with Derek White, Drew Holiday. I think that's what makes this team special, like in the conversation for and I don't think they're going to – there are people that are saying, well, is it the best team ever? I don't know. No, I obviously don't think that. But
2017 Warriors, 95, 96 Bulls.
Yeah. Come on. Yeah. There's so many others that you could throw in there. But on paper, it certainly looks like that because of the dominance in the playoffs. I mean, they lost 3 games in 4 series. So, but I think credit to Drew Holiday, Derek White, they both are just so good. They defend first, and then they're also can give you 20, and that's just rare for someone's 3rd, 4th, 5th options, and that's what separates them. So I think for any team that's looking to compete with them, if you look at what the Mavericks have, they have 2 really, really good players. Some of the role players, I think Lively's going to be really good, but some of the other role players, you don't have another guy that can really go get it. Like a Derek White, like a Drew Holiday, at least somewhat consistently. And that showed. That was on display. And I think so teams to look out for next year, it's hard to say before, free agency. Honestly, I think you look at the Pacers and call me a homer, but they had them on the ropes 3 of those games. And I know they got swept, but I think that's the type of style that could really – a team that can do something really, really well, specifically offensively, like the Pacers. It proved to hey, they can at least hang around. But across the board, John, it's hard to come up with teams because they're that good. I think maybe a healthy Bucks team potentially, just because they don't really have anyone that could guard Giannis. But I don't really like an older Dame and older Chris Middleton. And they don't really have a ton of young talent over there. The 76ers, maybe.
They're revamping their entire roster. They've got 3 guys under contract. That's it right now.
Yeah, and so I don't know where they're going to have to obviously make all the right moves there. And so in the East, it's hard to pick one. I think they're kind of set up.
New York, I think. But the West is, I think. Look, I'm with you. Picking a team in the Eastern Conference is kind of tough, especially like you have to be able to score at an incredibly efficient rate just to keep up with them.
Yeah.
And I think that's why saying the Pacers is I think that's why they're a great team to pick for this. Yeah. The question is obviously going to be defense. I'm looking out West. Oklahoma City is going to be better next year. The Denver could be better. We'll see what pieces they decide to add. But I do think that this is the Celtics at least get back to the finals, and then we see who they play. I don't think Dallas has a chance at making the finals again this next season.
Wow.
Yeah, they got lucky. In a lot of ways, they just had good matchups the whole way. PJ Washington goes nuts in that
He was
Thunder
great.
series, and like the Timberwolves are going to be better next year. And I think that Dallas has a major issue in they've built the team the wrong way. Then again, like it's hard when you don't have a ton of draft picks and things to trade away. But the second best player beside Luka, does not need to be a 6'2" guard that can only score. Like if Kyrie isn't making shots, he's not going to rebound. He's not big enough to be a good defender. And so, like, if he's not scoring, then it's like, what else does he really bring to the table? Dallas needs a Paul George type of guy, big, long wing who can play defense and still score. And they don't have that. I think they got pretty lucky this year. And look, they got beat 4-1, and it wasn't exactly close.
No, it wasn't.
And yeah, go.
I'm curious. I think one of the biggest things that needs to happen for Dallas, Luka needs to lay off the Pop-Tarts, dude. I mean, oh my gosh.
I don't mind the weight.
I do. I think that's part of why you see him, I mean, especially in a playoff series, to be well-conditioned enough to, like, he's not going to struggle to get up on offense. Like, that's not a problem. Obviously, he enjoys that. Defensively, I think part of it is a lack of just willingness to defend, but half of it is, dude, I turned on the game last night late, so it's third quarter, fourth quarter. He's just lazy. Like, and I think part of that has to do with conditioning. Dude's out of shape. He's not even close to the athlete that he was even like 2 years ago. If you look at some of his highlights in 2020 and 2021, it's not even close. And honestly, it's just shocking. Like his numbers have been so ridiculous that I haven't even realized, like, he's out of shape. He absolutely is. And I just think I think you saw firsthand this year that, like, your best players have to be able to, at least one of your first couple players have to be able to defend. And, like, I actually do think Luka has some defensive instincts. I do. I just think half the time he doesn't try to defend. And then the other half, he's just out of shape.
I'm with you to a certain extent. Like, he has these mental lapses, joined by my guy, Matt Murphy, former basketball coach. And you're right. Like, he has these mental lapses, like the number of backdoor cuts that he gave up to Drew Holiday throughout this series drove me nuts. But at the same time, their defensive rating with him on the floor going into last night was under 105. So, like, they're getting stops with him on the floor. And part of that is the guys around him. But yeah, the weight thing is interesting because I think part of why he's so good offensively is because he's just this big kind of bowling ball where he can kind of move people around. And so, but at the same time, if he loses 20 pounds, I don't think he loses that entirely.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing. I hope, as a Mavs fan, hope he doesn't play for Slovenia in the Olympics. Hope he takes some time off, gets into better shape. I don't know. It's tough to argue against a guy who puts up the numbers that he does, and like the defense hasn't been bad with him on the floor. Like it hasn't been. And could it be better? Of course, but we'll see.
I just think it's hard at his position. It's hard at his position to be built like he is and have like a really long career. I think a guy like Jokic, that's kind of the comparison that I go to of like a guy that doesn't really, but he doesn't need to be in shape. He benefits from being bigger.
He is in shape. He moves.
Well, I know, and he is. And I would honestly say for his position, he's more in shape than Luka is. Like just per position. Like, and I don't know. And maybe it's just an eye test thing. Like he just looks very out of shape. I'm not saying he gets winded or and different things. That is physically, he's just slow. And he's crafty. Yeah, he uses his body well, but I just think it's really going to be hard for him over the next couple of years if this continues. If he continues, I don't know, man. Pop-Tarts are great. Donuts are great. I'm out of shape too. I'm not trying to. Great. You're getting paid millions of dollars, and I feel like that definitely hurt them down the stretch. Honestly,
I think part of the conditioning issue is he also has the ball in his hands 90% of the time, and that is like when you're expected to generate all of the offense for your team, or most of it at least. And then on defense, they're switching you into guarding Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Like that wears on you as well. So I think they should take the ball out of his hands a little bit, even if your offense does suffer. because I think that will help him defensively as well. Matt, I got to run. I'm over on time. Thanks for your time as always. I'm sure I'll be having you back on again here at some point.
Yeah.
One more question though.
Yeah.
Do you think which happens first? Anthony Richardson wins a Super Bowl or Anthony Richardson releases a full album?
Full album.
I don't know
Full
if you've
album.
seen the rap videos.
Yeah, I don't even have to think about it. Full album. It's not
Full
even
album.
close.
Yeah.
I think the Colts are not as close as we would like to think. They're close to making the playoffs and being relevant in the playoffs, but to make a run, I think
Like
you have to be.
97.
I think if AR would have played all of last year, I would feel a little bit better about them. I just think he needs a year and a half, 2 years of like full on playing before they can be in legitimate Super Bowl contender conversation. So
Yeah, but
rap
if
album
playing
coming
in,
soon.
but if playing in the NFL is easier than college football, I don't know if we should be that worried.
You should make a rap song about that, and maybe I would listen. So yeah, rap albums come first for sure, no doubt.
Thanks for your time, man.
Pleasure. Yep. Take care.
That was my guy, Matt Murphy, the one and only. Love having him on the program. Just great guy, funny guy. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, Boston Celtics, one of the best teams ever. We're going to talk about that when we come back.
No matter what draws you to the water, the Yamaha 2024 boat lineup will make you feel right at home. Enjoy the spacious layout, advanced technology, all standard and used to create an incredible experience. If the water's calling you, there's a Yamaha boat waiting for you. Hey, on June 21st and 22nd, Just Add Water Boats is having an on-the-water boat show. Come on down and test drive a new Yamaha, Chaparral, Vexus, Crest Pontoon, or Godfrey Pontoon. The boats will be in the lake, revved up and ready to go.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket just wrapped up. A fantastic chat with my guy, Matt Murphy. Love having him on the show. A true friend of the program. And the Boston Celtics, that's mainly what we talked about to close. Look, that team's just awesome. Team is an absolute juggernaut, an absolute unit when it comes to basketball teams. And when we look back on teams that won the NBA Finals, there is always a quality that sticks out. Sometimes that quality is a basketball-based thing. For example, the 2017 Kevin Durant and Steph Curry Warriors, I remember as one of the best shooting teams ever. When I think about the 2017 Warriors, I think about shooting. The 2016 Cavaliers, though, I remember as resilient because they came back from down 3-1. When I think of the bad boy Pistons led by Isaiah Thomas, I think of toughness. That is the quality that sticks out. Every team that wins a title has a quality that defines who they are. For the Boston Celtics, this year's Boston Celtics at least, that quality is, there's two of them, adaptability and generosity. This is one of the most complete teams we've seen in the NBA in a long time. They had size, athleticism, shooting, playmaking, and defensive ability at every position. Every single position, right? Because every team that wins a title has all those things. They do. The difference with Boston, though, is that those skills are present in every player on the floor at all times. That completeness allowed them to be adaptable, especially on the defensive end of the floor. They had so many more options than every other team in the NBA on defense due to their athleticism and the number of players that they had that could actually play defense. Okay, when Kristaps Porzingis was in the game, which didn't happen much throughout these playoffs, they could pressure the ball and force everything to the rim, and Porzingis was there swatting shots like crazy. When he was out of the game, though, and it was Al Horford or Xavier Tillman or Luke Cornett playing center, their perimeter defenders could just hold up and not let people get by them. If someone did get beat off the dribble, then their athleticism that the Boston Celtics had would allow them to rotate and still get a contest on wherever the shot came from. Their adaptability on defense was a large part of why they won. It's why they had the second best defensive rating in the NBA this year and why they were able to hold a dynamic Mavericks offense led by two dynamic players in Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving to under 100 points in 4 out of the 5 games played during the series. Now, what I might say next might be blasphemy, but hear me out before. Don't go crazy. The 95-96 Bulls had the same advantage defensively that the Boston Celtics had this year. Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Ron Harper could all guard the point guard, shooting guard, and small forward positions, right? Very switchable in those 3 spots, which made them so much tougher to score on. And it's a large part of why the Chicago Bulls went 72-10 that year. The Celtics could do the same thing with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Drew Holiday and Derek White. All 4 of those guys were extremely switchable at almost every position. And their bigs, Porzingis and Al Horford, they could hold their own on the perimeter as well. And because of that, because of this adaptability and switchability on defense, in a few years, we are going to look back on this 2023-2024 Boston Celtics team as one of the best defensive teams we have ever seen. The reason why they're so great defensively is because they're adaptable. Whoever's guarding who, the Celtics are able to adjust and figure out a way to play good defense. This is truly one of the best defensive teams we are ever going to see. Offensively, they were great because of their generosity. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum very easily could have taken the ball and averaged 30 points a game during this playoff run. They could have, but they didn't. They were willing to share the ball. Everyone on their team was, and they have a plethora of offensive options. So many guys that can dribble, pass, and shoot. Okay, they as a team, though, chose to be generous with the ball, and their willingness to share and move the ball is what allowed them to have the best statistical offense ever. They averaged 123 points per 100 possessions. That's the best all time. It's absurd. And you can only have an offense at that level of efficiency if you have players that are willing to share the ball. It's why the Pacers offense was so great this year. All 5 guys on the floor at all times were willing to pass and share and move the basketball. That's how you generate good looks. The Oklahoma City Thunder had the 3rd best offense in the league this year. Guess what they did? They willingly moved and shared the basketball. That is what you have to have these truly great offenses. And when we look, on the other side of it, we look at the Dallas Mavericks. You know what they didn't do this year? They didn't share the ball. And their offense was stagnant and struggled throughout this series because of it. Like when Luka got the ball, it's a high ball screen. He's going to look to make a skip pass. He's going to post up a smaller guy, or he's going to shoot a layup. Like that was the option. And when he got tired, he would throw it over to Kyrie, and they would do the exact same thing. The ability and willingness to share the basketball just makes offenses harder to stop, right? And when we look at Boston, that generosity and willingness to share the basketball starts with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown buying in and being willing to drive and kick and move the ball. Like this is one of the most complete teams we will ever see on both ends of the floor. And obviously, the Boston Celtics had plenty of shooters. So when they did drive and kick, they were raining in threes. They were the best team all year. And that doesn't happen often. It's very rare that we see a team go wire to wire, and it's pretty clear that they're the best. Okay, they were as complete a team as I've ever seen. They had shooting all over the floor, 5 guys on the floor at all times that could defend. Jason Tatum is one of the 6 best players in the world. Jaylen Brown's one of the 20 best players in the world. And on top of those 2 guys, they had great role players. Derek White, awesome. He'd be the 3rd best player on that Dallas Mavericks team. Drew Holiday was the 2nd best player on the 2021 Milwaukee Bucks. Al Horford, just a pro's pro. So glad for him. So glad that he won a title. Brad Stevens did a fantastic job in putting this team together. Making the trade for Kristaps Porzingis. Making the trade for Derek White. Making the trade for Drew Holiday. Getting rid of Marcus Smart. Right? That Drew Holiday trade was incredible. Like that is what ultimately put them over the top because Drew Holiday was great in the finals. He was great in the Eastern Conference Finals. Like throughout the playoffs, Drew Holiday was just this steadying force that I thought really stabled the ship that is the Boston Celtics. He was incredible. On top of that, Brad Stevens decided to promote a 34-year-old coach that sat on the second row of the bench to head coach when all the Ime Udoka crap happened. He's now the head coach in Houston. I mean, like, it's incredible just the job that Brad Stevens has done. And this team undoubtedly deserved to win a title with the way that it was beautifully constructed. They had the best offense in the regular season and the 2nd best defense. If that doesn't tell you how great this team was, then nothing will. You're probably just a hater at that point. The Celtics went 80-21. They only lost 3 games in the playoffs. That is an insane run. They are the 4th team ever to win 80 games. They won 79% of the games that they played this year between the playoffs and the regular season. They had the 3rd highest net rating in NBA history. Now, I know that on their playoff run, there were some injuries, but let's be honest, you aren't going to remember that next year. You aren't going to remember that a month from now. This was truly a dominant team, and they played like that in the finals against a good Mavericks team. Okay, like this title was a good reminder that teams that are constructed properly can win titles even if they don't have the best player in the series. Okay, there were 3 guys on this Boston Celtics team that could have won finals MVP, and I'd have been cool with it. Drew Holiday, who was awesome, Jason Tatum, or Jaylen Brown. All 3 were deserving. And it's not often that a team wins a title and 3 players played well enough to deserve to be the finals MVP. That speaks to the depth and how well constructed this roster is. The only players whose contracts are expiring for the Celtics this year, because this is the crazy part. They can do this again. Like, they can do this next year. They're bringing everybody back. Here are the players who have expiring contracts that play for the Boston Celtics. J.D. Davidson, who's on a two-way contract. Luke Cornett, who played sparingly during the playoffs. A guy whose name I can't pronounce, who you don't even know who it is. Drew Peterson, a two-way player. Xavier Tillman, who played sparingly during the playoffs and in the finals. Sam Hauser, who played a decent role off the bench, coming in and knocking down threes, but 3-and-D guys are everywhere. They are not hard to find. Neemias Queta, his contract is expiring. And O'Shea Brissett, former Pacer, his contract is also expiring. That means that all the major dudes are going to come back and the cap goes up. So Boston's going to have money to add whoever they want. Not whoever they want, but they're going to be able to add role players and more shooting and those things. And I got to be honest with you. I don't know who they're going to add. I don't know what they're going to add because they don't really need anything. The Boston Celtics are currently the favorites in Vegas to win the title next year at plus 300. The team with the second best odds to win the title next year are the Nuggets at plus 750. Okay, like this Boston Celtics team isn't going anywhere, and they have a legitimate chance to repeat next year. That'll be their last opportunity because the Jaylen Brown money kicks in at the start of this next year. Jason Tatum is about to sign a monster contract extension that'll kick in not next year, but the year after. So 2 years from now, that's when things will get interesting for Boston because a lot of their salary cap is going to be wrapped up in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. So it'll be interesting then, but all these guys are going to be back next year. Like, to win the NBA Finals, you're likely going to have to beat this tough, complete Boston Celtics team, which is a tall order for whoever they wind up playing. Going to wrap up the show when we come back here in about 4 minutes. Going to talk a little more NBA Finals and a little bit of Dallas Mavericks. That's coming up here in about 4 minutes.
On a mission to protect free speech, Rumble is one of the only video sharing platforms where you can watch genuine content for free. Rumble is available on desktop, mobile, and connected TV, featuring bold, influential voices. Rumble gives you the freedom to be entertained with exclusive creators, action-packed sports, lively debates, and more. And now you can cut cable. Download the Rumble TV apps and watch independent media on the big screen. Creators such as Steven Crowder at 10 a.m. Monday through Thursday, Kimberly Guilfoyle at 4 p.m. Eastern Mondays and Thursdays, Glenn Greenwald at 7 p.m. Eastern Monday through Friday, and Don Jr. at 6 p.m. Eastern Mondays and Thursdays. Rumble is the place to find authentic expression from creators, a place where we do not censor, but rather believe that everyone should benefit from access to a network full of more ideas, diverse opinions, and dialogue. Join Rumble, where people are given the freedom to be entertained by exclusive content from creators who are empowered to express themselves freely. Visit rumble.com or download the app and watch for free.
The best takes, stories, and entertainment. It's The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket. 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket, wrapping up the show here. The Dan Dockage set to get way here in about 18 minutes. Started off with Seth Greenberg coming up here in about 18 minutes. Can't wait for the Dan Dockage show today. Should be, just another great day of sports radio here in the great city of Indianapolis. Covered a lot of ground in today's show, right? The NBA Finals obviously happened last night. We covered that probably better than anyone else is going to here in the market. Got into a little bit of U.S. Open stuff. Top 10 Tuesday was absolutely electric, and I think that's how I'm going to close the show. Let's get into Top 10 Tuesday. I would say in honor of, but the Caitlin Clark Angel Reese rivalry, because that's what it is. It got me thinking, what are some of the best rivalries in the history of sports? And not like Red Sox Yankees. That's boring. Who cares about that? Player and player rivalries. And this is in no particular order. The last one that I mentioned, if you want to sub it out, not a big deal. So let's get to Top 10 Tuesday old player rivalries. Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal has to be on this list. They didn't like each other. It's part of why Shaq left for Miami. The feuds are well documented. Shaquille O'Neal will say that he left LA because they didn't want to pay him. That's not true. He left because he didn't like Kobe Bryant. And Shaq went to Miami with the goal of winning a championship without Kobe Bryant. And he did, and that was a big deal for him. It was a big deal for Kobe because when Kobe won his fifth, he was quick to point out that he had one more than Shaq. It's one of the first things that he said. So Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal has to be on this list. It's a little different because they were teammates, but I think everybody knows that those two guys didn't exactly like each other. Magic and Bird also has to be on this list, right? This is the rivalry that brought the NBA back. And it dates back to college, right? Magic Johnson beating Larry Bird and the Indiana State Sycamores in the NCAA tournament finals, right? They seem like they're buddies now. They ended up being buddies during their career. Obviously, they wrap up their careers playing together in the 1992 Olympics. They had plenty of battles during their careers. They played each other in the finals 3 separate times. Just one of the best rivalries in the history of sports, and it always will be, just due to the historical significance that it has with the NBA. Very similar to Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell. This is one of the oldest rivalries in the history of sports, but it still deserves to be on this list. They faced off in the playoffs multiple times, and while Wilt Chamberlain compiled all sorts of stats and accolades, Bill Russell just kept on winning championships. I think this rivalry also symbolizes a lot of sports debates. Do you picking especially in basketball, right? You picking Michael Jordan with the 6 rings, or you going with LeBron James, who's won 4 titles, but he's also the all-time leading scorer, and he has this record. And I think that this rivalry of Chamberlain and Russell symbolizes a lot of these sports debates that we have with our buddies. So next on the list, Ali and Frazier. They are not friends, unlike Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. Ali and Frazier did not like each other. They fought 3 times after Walt Frazier took the championship belt while Muhammad Ali was dodging the draft. The first fight after Frazier wins, and Ali is running his mouth and Frazier's running his mouth, and they say hurtful things and families get involved, and it's not great. Not the best moment for either one of these guys. Muhammad Ali tries to apologize. Frazier didn't want to hear that. They fight 2 more times. Ali wins both. Just one of the best rivalries in the history of boxing. Next on the list, Jordan against the Bad Boys. This is another historical rivalry in the NBA. And, the basketball rivalries are always just so much more obvious because you're constantly on the court together. You're seeing the guys' facial expressions. They're having to guard one another. I mean, they're very easy to see. And this one was as well. The Pistons didn't like Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan didn't like the Pistons. at all, right? I mean, you've heard the clip here that we play throughout the day of Charles Barkley saying that Michael Jordan very simply said that if Isaiah Thomas plays on the dream team, he's not playing. And, that's, wrong. That's kind of soft. I'll just to be honest about it, but that was the way it was. And that fed into this rivalry between Isaiah Thomas and Michael Jordan. Obviously the bad boys, they put in these Jordan rules, and when those didn't work, they go after Pippen, and they beat Michael Jordan multiple times in the playoffs. And that obviously didn't sit well with Jordan. So that has to make the list. Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning. This is one of the better quarterback rivalries that we had, during the history of the NFL. Brady holds the all-time record between the two, being 11-6 against Peyton Manning head-to-head. But Peyton Manning beat Tom Brady 3 out of the 4 times they matched up in AFC championship games. So that rivalry was great. Tom Brady and Eli Manning. Eli Manning beats Brady twice in Super Bowls, which doesn't sit well with Brady at all. Sure, it drives him crazy because when you look at the quarterbacks that Tom Brady matched up against, Eli Manning's probably the second worst one. The only one that was probably worse was young Jared Goff when he was playing with the Rams. They managed to score 3 points against that Bill Belichick defense. Moving into baseball, these last two out of these last 3, just nuts. Roger Clemens and Mike Piazza. It all starts with a fastball to Piazza's dome. Okay, Roger Clemens, throwing absolute heat. It's the Subway Series, Yankees and Mets. Roger Clemens goes high and inside, hits Piazza in the head, gives him a concussion. Piazza misses the All-Star game. Couple months later, World Series, Mets, Yankees, they're playing each other. And Roger Clemens runs a fastball in on Piazza's hands. Piazza fouls it off, snaps his bat. Roger Clemens then picks up the shards of the bat and throws it at Mike Piazza. Bench is clear, which is insane given that it's a World Series game, and that doesn't happen in the World Series. And, bench is clear, all that fun stuff. Later, Mike Piazza writes a memoir, right, about his life. And he talks about this. And in it, he says that he learned karate. He took karate classes because he thought he was going to have to fight Roger Clemens that night, which is insane, especially given how big Mike Piazza is. Like I don't think he needed karate classes to fight Roger Clemens, but hey, that's just me. Next on the list, Tanya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan. Wild story. One of the most intense feuds in Olympics history. After practice in Detroit, Michigan, 1994, Nancy Kerrigan brutally attacked and beaten with a metal baton. And it's like, oh no, who would do this? Oh, the husband of Tanya Harding would do that. Nuts. Insane. I mean, oh my gosh. It's one of the craziest stories in all of sports. And this is figure skating that we're talking about here. Absolutely insane. Westbrook and Durant, I also put on this list. I said earlier, if you wanted to replace it with Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods, I have no issue with that. I'm just a hoops guy, and this feud was very real. The lack of postseason meetings between the two kind of dampens it a little bit, but I still thought that it was worthy of being on the list because the regular season matchups after it happened were nuts. I remember the Kevin Durant return to Oklahoma City like it was yesterday, being booed. Him and Russell Westbrook putting their heads together, just getting really nasty with each other. Russell Westbrook talking trash, running his mouth the entire game. And Kevin Durant just being like, all right, bro, I got you. And then giving him buckets. I mean, it was just incredible. One of my favorite rivalries ever. And those are the 10. But then we move into this newer age where rivalries are beginning to emerge. Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. This is the new Brady and Manning. They are clearly the two best quarterbacks in the NFL. They're just in the same conference. And so they're going to continue to see each other, right, in the AFC playoffs. They are. And they're going to play in the AFC championship games and in divisional rounds and wild card rounds. And we're going to be tuned into every single one trying to see if Josh Allen is ever going to get over this hump of beating Patrick Mahomes, who is the best quarterback in the NFL right now. He just is. And that is going to be something that we continue to watch and see develop over the years. Obviously, Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese has to be on this list. Right? I wouldn't have done this list if it wasn't for them. People are going to continue to tune in and watch these two play and compete. We're going to continue to listen to the absolutely absurd things that Angel Reese says about Caitlin Clark. We just are. Angel Reese, this all obviously starts with her beating Caitlin Clark in the national championship game 2 years ago when Angel Reese was playing at LSU, but she hasn't beaten her since. Right? It has this very real magic and bird feel to it, and it's going to continue to develop over these next couple seasons. Hopefully, the WNBA can cut down on the drama. That way, we're all interested enough to see it. Next, I don't know if I like this one. When I wrote it down last night, it was kind of late. Brooks Koepka and Bryson DeChambeau. This all started with Brooks Koepka making the comment about how long it takes DeChambeau to hit the ball. It's calmed down a bit since then, but these are two of the better young golfers in the game. So, they're going to run into each other again, and hopefully it's spicy. My last one here doesn't need any sort of explanation. I think when I say it, everyone's going to understand. My last emerging rivalry in the world of sports is transgender athletes versus real women. No need to explain that one. Coming up here in about 6 minutes, Seth Greenberg of ESPN is going to join the Dan Dockett Show to talk NBA Finals and all of those great things. Thanks for tuning in to the real Jonathan Smith Show today. I had a blast. Summer is here. Can't wait for just all the different shows, all the different things that I'm going to do on here. Should be an absolute blast. Tony East joining me tomorrow at 11:20, as he usually does, to talk Fever. The Fever play tomorrow night. They're hosting the Washington Mystics. So we will undoubtedly have plenty of stuff to go into tomorrow. And I can't wait. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. The Dan Dockett Show is coming your way here in about 5 minutes. I hope you guys have a great day. Make sure to tune in tomorrow, 10 to noon, to listen to the real Jonathan Smith Show. I didn't tell you this, but Dan is not working tomorrow. So make sure you tune in 10 to noon to listen to the real Jonathan Smith Show. I will talk to you guys then. Seth Greenberg, Dan Dockett, coming up here in about 5 minutes.
Introducing Rumble Cloud, a platform that supports business freedom and innovation.